And they've developed a mobile payments app. They call it payments.gy, and we're going to learn something about it now, and it will be presented by Mr. Ronson Gray from Intellect Storm, and this is Mr. Ronson Gray. I'd ask you, please welcome Mr. Ronson Gray to tell us about payments.gy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We'll first do 2 promotional demo videos before I go into my presentation on the app. So here we go. That's the first one. Let me stop, sorry. Right, so this one just is more of a brief list of the services, who, what, when, and where can utilize the app. And here we have it. Okay, guys. Thank you for your attention today. My name is Ronson Gray, as mentioned before, and I'm from Intellect Storm. Intellect Storm is a local IT company. We've been operational for about 4 years now, and comprises mostly of very young adults. Our core value is to build systems that can improve the lives of everyday Guyanese. So payments.gy, what is payments? Now, before I tell you what it is, let me tell you how we got there. I'm going to tell you 2 stories. So the first story is about a competition that we won in 2015 in Jamaica. We created a mobile directory that allowed persons to search for any product, business, or service and give results based on their geographic location. So we went street by street. We mapped the entire Georgetown. We got about 95% of the businesses. We put them online. Persons could search, ketchup, soap, Giftland movie theaters. They could search for almost anything and get results based on where they are. They can get turn-by-turn directions to find that. Now, after that competition and, winning that competition and coming back, we said, what's missing? Because something was missing. A lot of persons were searching, but they weren't able to take action. So that's when we realized that what's missing from all of this is the ability to complete a transaction. And that's when we got to thinking of how do we solve that problem for businesses, for users. Now, the second story, MMG, Mobile Money Guyana. It's a mobile wallet that's run by one of the telecos down here. You guys who are not familiar with it, there are similar services in, for example, Haiti, in Kenya, and they're very ubiquitous in parts of Africa. So we decided to, through a partnership with Mobile Money Guyana, we can launch a payment platform that would allow businesses as well as customers to pay for their goods and services from anywhere they are, as long as they have an internet connection. So that is what payments.gy is. It's a simple and safe way to pay. Now, here we'll have the app with some of the features you'll find with it. We use merchant codes. We're scanning merchant codes. So every merchant would have a QR code that's specific to their business, and the user would just have to scan that code. Their information would populate on the back end, so we know who we have to remit the payment to, and the customer doesn't have to spend a lot of time, typing out, the business name or searching for the business. The payment amount and the payment amount. Now, we can build payment amounts right into merchant code, so for specific products, you don't have to go to the additional steps of entering the payment amount. It would pre-populate with whatever we program into your merchant code. Convenience fee, that's how we make money. There's a small convenience fee for the use of this service, and that convenience fee can either be shared by the business and the customer themselves, or the business themselves. Invoice or account number, that's just a reference for the purchase or payment that you're trying to make, and a PIN confirmation, very important. This is an added layer of security. Locally with the MMG platform, they're PIN-based transactions. So when you enter to pay a bill or to pay a merchant, you must use your PIN. We think this gives an added layer of security because not only does a user have to sign into the app with their credentials, but to complete that transaction, they still have to use a PIN. Okay, this slide is a bit messed up, excuse me. But for your business, now what we realize is that there are a lot of persons online, they're using services, but services not native to the locality. Facebook, we have over 300,000 Guyanese that access Facebook almost daily. So we thought that building our service into platforms such as these, it would be easier to connect with these potential users. It's good to build a solution and build a site and hope that people come, or we can take the initiative of going to where they are to get them to complete transactions. And what you see here is a bot that we built for a local company, Princess Movie Theaters. What this bot does, it integrates directly with Princess's database, tells you movie availabilities and times, and once you go through the steps and selecting what movie you want, what time you want, and how many tickets you want, you can actually complete a transaction within the payments.gy app by either entering your email address associated with your payments account, or if you're doing it from your mobile phone, the software will pick up that you have the app on your phone and will send you that payment request immediately. So upon completion and entering your PIN and the amount, you can just show up at the movie theater with the receipt right in the app and watch the movie. Now for customers, it's a safe and secure. We have 2 factors of authentication. First, your password for the app, and second, your PIN to complete that transaction. Now it's flexible and it's easy. You can pay in a store by scanning a QR code at checkout, or you can pay from home. The from home, what we've done is created the ability for third-party applications to easily integrate. Now, we don't expect that we're going to think of every way in which this can revolutionize business in Guyana. We have a lot of bright young people who are doing a lot of amazing things. So what we want to do is give them the ability to tap into the payment aspect of this platform. So when they develop an app, we have Shamar here from Swap, should persons need to complete a payment in other applications that they're building, our platform must be able to accommodate them. Now the nuts and bolts. It gives us the ability to expand markets for businesses. It's access to customers who may not normally come into a store. The businesses gets paid up front. One of the major things about trying to get a merchant to come on board is, how do I get my money? When I sell this service, how do I collect money? How do I get payment? With this platform, that merchant gets paid up front. The transaction cannot be completed if the customer does not have money in the wallet. So that adds a lot of value for the merchant. Sorry, so this is where the bot was supposed to be. And this is another example of a platform that we've built to work on payments. So everybody buys fast food, Creole's food, different kinds of food. So we thought that build a platform where a restaurant can simply upload a menu. A person can go to Facebook, select whatever it is that they want to eat, and pay for it. Now, it's incumbent on the provider to provide delivery for that meal or food, whatever they're serving. But I think that also creates a business opportunity, because now we have logistics companies who are going to be able to start up, to fulfill the need of these orders being placed on the platform. So that's the bottom line. All of the development for this platform was done in-house. So we have a very good technical team, that spent the past 2 years developing and testing this platform. We're almost ready to roll out. So there's no development cost for businesses or merchants to come on board. And we find that that lowers the barrier to entry into the mobile payment system network. There's no maintenance fees. Again, as much as possible, making it easy for a business to come on board. That's what we want to do, so there are no maintenance fees as well. And there's no major change in the business process. There's nothing crazy that you have to change about how you do business. If you have a website, now when traffic goes to that website in Guyana, the transaction gets converted and you fulfill the order just as you would have done. Actually, it's easier because you don't have to wait for somebody to come or send a payment with somebody. You can get to processing the customer's transactions. Now, also, because we're on the MMG network, all the transactions happen in our local currency. So there is no third party outside of Guyana that we have to forward and pay a percentage of that fee to. What that does for us is give us the ability to price our product competitively within the market. When we do a case-by-case comparison for one product that's offered locally, a movie ticket at the Giftland Cinema, that 2 movie tickets that you buy, it actually works out to about a fee of $600, which is about $3 US, 600 Guyana dollars, thereabout, that you're just giving to the merchant and the processor. On our platform, those 2 movie tickets would just cost you $200 or the equivalent of $1. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, we'll get to them during the discussion. Thank you.
Let me get the questions going with a nuts and bolts question so I understand it properly. So it's payments.gy. You need to get merchants to sign on and end users as well.
Correct.
And you use the app to transfer the value between them. So I as a user, I would establish a wallet with payments.gy.
Correct.
And where does my money go? How do I put money into that wallet?
Okay, so MMG Guyana, as I mentioned, they are a mobile wallet locally. So they function as a bank. And that's an excellent question because that's how your account gets funded. None of the customers' funds are held on our platform. So we don't hold any money. The money are held with MMG, in this case, who is the bank. Another great thing about this platform that it allows for inclusion of other banks as well. So let's say, for instance, a more traditional bank wishes to come online so their customers could benefit from something like this. They would just plug right in. So wherever you have your money, that financial institution that you have your money with, that's where your money stays. But we just act as the intermediary between businesses, merchants, so making that process easier.
Did a bank wanting to come on would plug right into what? They would plug into M&G, or they would have their own separate?
Good. So in this case, they would be like how we have MMG, who is the current wallet that we're working with. In that case, if we go back to the video, there was a point when you had select wallet, and it selected a personal number that was a phone number. That's how MMG works right now. So all your funds are linked to your phone number. Now let's say we use Republic Bank for instance. In that case, when that person selects where they want to pay from, it would now be either your MMG phone number or your Republic Bank. And you can set a default account for your payments to be debited from if you wish.
All right, so payments.gy is like a gateway to different banks, as it were.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Where their money will be kept. And the user decides where the money is kept.
Yes. So the user would decide whichever bank they want to deal with. But for us rolling out, we're rolling out with MMG Guyana. So in that case, this would be the only option now.
Okay.
And your convenience fee, is it a percentage of the transaction or is it a flat fee per transaction?
Well, the convenience fee varies. It varies from 75 Guyana dollars to 250 Guyana dollars. So what that means is on the lower end of transactions, you'll pay a $75 fee. For example, if you bought something for like 1,000 Guyana dollars, or which is equivalent to $5 US. On the high end, we cap the fee out at 250 Guyana dollars for purchases. So if you go up to a 25,000 or $100,000 Guyana transaction on a purchase, we take no more than $250.
So in between the minimum and the cap, is it a percentage of the transaction?
There are two other tiers in there that ranges, I think, as you go over $2,500 and at about
Okay, so
$3,500.
all right, so it's a step kind of fee.
Yep.
Other questions from the audience?
My question is not directly maybe related to your solution, maybe related to MMG. MMG is a mobile wallet solution, right?
Yep.
Does the local banks allow funds to be transferred from the local bank account to MMG's account as of now?
No, they are not as of now. I know that's something that MMG is currently working on, a way in which you can fund your wallet to process transactions. And about funding the wallet, there is another opportunity for persons to take advantage of remittances. Remittances is a large part of, you know, how people get income in Guyana. There are services that can transfer money to any post office in Guyana. So there's Zoom, which is a PayPal company. So persons can now, when the person sends them some money, let's say from the US, they can send it through Zoom and anybody can pick that up at a post office. Now where the opportunity is let's say those post offices become agents or super agents of the MMG or any bank. Once somebody sends that remittance, they would have the ability to send that money directly to your device or to your account. So that would ease the stress for persons, you know, in outlying regions to travel to get money, and that money can be deposited right to their account. So there's an opportunity there for funding accounts as well.
Any other questions? How do you collect your fee?
So our fee is debited as a part of our arrangement with the provider, MMG. So at the time of the transaction, based on the amount, we already know what the split will be. So, you know, their part get forwarded to their account, ours to our account. And the remittance, we actually handle the remittance for the businesses. So the business will have a profile, an account where they can see as their transactions happen. So somebody, you know, gets on your website, you get an email notification, a text notification, and you can log in to say, okay, I'm at $100,000 today, please remit. And then we process that and send you that money via bank deposit.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Quite interesting. I want you to understand that MMG also is taking a fee as well too?
No, well, based on our arrangement, the fee that the customer sees, that will include whatever fee MMG is supposed to get from the transaction. So the customer will only see one fee, and that's through our arrangement. If persons were to access the MMG platform right now outside of the payment network payments, MMG does have fees, for example, you know, to pay bills or merchant transactions and such, they have fees. But when you come to our payment platform, even though MMG is the underlying bank, when you see that one fee, we will sort that out with them. The customer doesn't see an additional fee outside of that.
Any other questions right now? Not right now? Okay. Thank you very much, Ronson. That was very good.
Thank you.
So clearly there's innovation going on in Guyana, some app development and so on. We have mobile wallet companies and we have people who building on top of that. Mr. Wilson.
How many customers you have at the present time, if I may ask?
Well, we haven't launched, so we aren't serving any customers. We have about 10, I would say, mid-sized to large merchants who we're partnering with. And yeah, so we haven't launched, so I can't tell you. No, we have not launched commercially as yet. We're still in the final phases of real money testing.
Do you have a target date for your launch yet?
I'm just looking over at my partner there and the chief CEO and chief technical officer of Intellect Storm. I handle the business side, and if it was up to me, we'd be launched tomorrow. But he has to make sure that all of those things are in order before we do set a date. As we know, when you deal with money, you don't get second chances.
Yes, indeed. So quite soon is what you would say. All right, thanks a lot, Ronson. Our second presenter is Mr. Shemar Spencer, and he is from a group called SWAP. SWAP sounds like swap, which is exchanging, and it's actually that. It's a mobile bartering app, and please welcome Shemar to come and tell us about SWAP.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shemar Spencer, and I'm the founder of SWAP. About 18 months ago, I was working at a restaurant as a manager. And one of the duty of a manager is to reduce costs. And one thing the restaurant was experiencing is a lot of built up food waste. The garbage truck only comes once a week. And the other days, I have to pay someone to get rid of it. So I was looking for a way to reduce this cost. And what I did, I reached out to a pig farmer and I asked him if he needed food waste. And he said yes. So I asked him if he would give us anything in exchange. And he agreed to give us fruits in exchange. So right away I felt like I found a solution. So right there and then we started formulating ideas how we could integrate this and spread it across the country. So that was the birth of SWAP. SWAP is a mobile bartering app that allows you to exchange goods and services. About goods and services. Our vision is to reduce waste and also deliver value to persons around the country. So instead of you throwing something out, you're more likely to snap a pic of it, upload, chat, and swap. We believe in a country, in an economy, where we can maximize, or where we can boost our efficiency and productivity by fully utilizing every single product or service without anything going to waste. So our platform is there to connect persons to utilize services or products that other persons no longer use. So that's it in a nutshell. Yeah. Okay. Everyone has a need to fill and something to offer. And I believe every single person sitting right here have something at home that they no longer use. And it's just sitting there, you have no use for it, but yet you're not getting rid of it. This platform will allow you to connect with other persons that is looking for items or service that you have that you no longer use. Now you can receive value for that item that is just sitting there in your house doing nothing. So, yeah.
Very interesting app. I have one concern. The security attached to the app of indicating where we will meet. Does it open an avenue for people with bad intentions to use the app, meet somebody, and then rob them?
Well, in terms of security, we have plotted safe locations that are very public to persons. And to answer your question also on security, no one would come and rob you for an old microwave or something. But it's not, these items they have value, but it's not an item someone would actually come and rob you for. Yeah, but we have selected safe locations that people can feel safe to swap. And we will know every single transaction, so we have the information for the other party that you're swapping with. Yeah.
So the way it works is I set up an account with the app, on the app, and which would allow me to upload pictures of items that I might have available for swapping. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, and so this app is hosted somewhere. I'm uploading it to what? I'm uploading it to
The platform.
right.
Yeah.
And this platform is hosted here in Guyana or
No, it's right here. It's
It's
an
right here.
application.
right.
So
Uh-huh.
you just snap a pic, you upload, and someone will send you an offer.
Right.
Yeah, and you start negotiating from there.
And you communicate via the app using chat or whatever.
Yeah, if I go back to the video,
Mm-hmm.
there is a chat feature.
Actually, just click forward. Play on the bottom, yeah, I think. Oh, no, you're stepping through it. Okay, I see.
So you accept, select the location,
Right.
and you start chatting. And there's also this rating feature which will allow you to rate the person or rate the transaction, so other persons can see that this person was authentic and they already start using the transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you make money?
Right now we're developing a business model around the application, but right now we're looking at advertising.
Okay. Okay, so if it's a place that people go to very often to do these transactions, advertisers might be willing to pay to have stuff on the site. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, yes, my brother. My name is Sharon Cummings, and I'm speaking on the standpoint of a business consultant. I mean, you technically inclined, but I'm looking at it on a business front. The platform seems very interesting to me. It facilitates trade, basically. To me, it's a trade platform. So I have two questions, just to reiterate what the gentleman said. I had an issue with security, but it seems like you also worked on that. But let's say, have you considered it from the standpoint of the legislative standpoint, when it comes to, because at the end of the day, remember now you'll be trading various merchandise online. So have you considered it from that standpoint, basically? If you understand what I'm trying to find out. Well, basically, for example, a specific example, remember there in these times there are copyright laws, there are patents and stuff like that. So for example, I have, let's say, a used Ray-Ban shades or something like that, and I upload it to your system. You know, I don't know, have you considered the legal implications for around that nature?
Yes, we did consider the legal things around that nature. It's in our terms and conditions where we stated that that a person, you can report the item, and we will deal with the issue from there. What we stated in our terms and conditions is right on the application, and persons can report an a stolen item or an item that doesn't fit the description.
Shamar, I think this is very good. I mean, one of the things, are you still working as a manager? And what time do you devote to this? And how many persons are actually working on this or employed to do this?
Well, we have a strong team that is developing the platform, which is Intellect Storm. So they're doing all the developing for the application. And yes, I do have a marketing team, and yes, I am still working. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I
Roland.
just want to know, is swap for anything? You have electronics or
Hold it
anything,
higher. Is it on?
anything on, right?
Yeah, anything.
Supposing now I steal something and I try to swap it on there, how do you protect against that?
How do you
Protect
protect?
against that.
Like
Stole-
I
Let's
said,
say
stolen goods.
something, I'm trying to get rid of something, and I see it I see something I want on the site, but I'm not the owner of what I want to swap.
then you can report the item. There's a feature that you could report the item. If you see that, let me say you have a laptop and you believe this is your laptop, you can report the item and we will deal with the issue from there.
Or if I have stolen something and I'm offering it for sale, the person who's the owner, the true owner, would have to, I guess, be looking at swap to be able to see the item.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no ownership to
Yeah.
show anything.
How can you establish that you are the rightful owner?
Like I
That
said,
kind of thing.
we don't have all the questions. We are now developing this application. And based on feedbacks, we will continue to strengthen this application. But we're still in developing mode.
Great. One more.
So just to assist here a bit, Amazon allows third parties to list items. eBay allows persons to list items. You could still steal something and you could list it. Now, the difference in that situation is if I stole something and I'm trading it. Hello? I thought they cut me. If I stole something and I trade it with my comrade offline, there's no way for anyone else to know. But in this situation, it brings more awareness to that entire transaction there too. I don't know if I could probably help you with that answer.
I think so.
In fact, you can tell when the transaction is completed,
Yeah,
when the swap takes place.
yeah, there's
the
the
meeting board.
final stage of rating the transaction.
Right.
And there
There's
we
a
know
s-
the transaction is
There's
done.
a sign-off required. Once the parties meet and exchange items, is there a sign-off in the app?
Yeah, we're advising persons to rate the transactions.
Okay.
When you rate the transaction, then we can know this
It's completed.
transaction. Yeah.
Okay.
We have another one.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Given the lack of regulation in our country and how some people might be prone to corruption, I want to know if somebody would try to trade something illegal like drugs or alcohol. Do you have steps to prevent that, or guns or ammunition? Can those things pass through your app?
Yeah. We do have disclaimers. And yeah, we do have disclaimers. And you can report an item. So we're asking the public, if you see someone is trading guns, then obviously you're going to report it. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, all you're doing is bringing attention to the fact that individuals may have products that they want to dispose of. And you're saying that it's a swap. Doesn't mean that I want to get that same pair of glasses for a referred to, but I don't have something else I want to swap. I want to buy it. So essentially, you're providing a service to promote products that people want to dispose of one way or the other. So even though it says it's a swap, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to swap one physical item, another physical item. I may want to buy a jacket you have. I don't have something else to swap for it other than cash. So, it's not really an e-commerce site per se. It's really a site that is promoting awareness of products that persons may want to dispose of for one reason or the other.
Okay. Like I mentioned also, you can also swap services. So if you like my jacket and you're a person that weeds the yard, then you can weed my yard for at least 2 weeks in exchange for my jacket. Yeah. And also you mentioned the transaction is done offline. The reason why we set up this platform is not just to facilitate bartering, but is more to connect persons. We are living in a society where we are connected, yet we're disconnected. So one of the great feature of this application is the human connection, is actually connecting with someone and exchanging right there, and then we're creating relationships on the application.
What I gather from that, then, you can have a swap of an item for money.
We are currently working on it. Like I said, we're still developing. We haven't launched as yet.
I know, but I'm saying the app can, if you're swapping, you can swap an item for another item.
Yeah.
Or you could swap an item for cash.
Right now, how the platform is set up is item for item.
Item by item.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would need to move on to the next one. We're not going to be able to debug everything for him this afternoon, but still.
I just want to make a comment again, like on the developmental front, what I foresee, like that was a great question, and to reiterate what you said also, maybe in the future if you do decide to actually have cash transactions, I already foresee some kind of collaboration between the two companies. He does payments, you have the merchandise, you could definitely do something together.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks to Shema, please.
Sorry.
Okay.
One question. Is there any
Yes.
cash involved? For instance, I have a Nike and I see a pen and I say, well, listen, I want that pen. But you pay a difference or something like that? Or is it strictly bartering? Straight?
Well, this company is new to Guyana, and what we're doing right now is testing the product. And if we have to pivot to cash, then maybe we will. Because in every single business, there's a point where you have to pivot from your original business model.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, is it a balance? You know, because some might be more expensive, or you might say, listen, this costs a little bit more. I want that little bit difference. You know, you understand that?
There is a possibility.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Shema. You could probably stick around for a while. Our third presenter is a company called Innovative Systems Incorporated, and they have a system that deals with rates and tariff management. And the first speaker from there is going to be Mr. Julius Simmons. Please welcome Julius.
Just give me a moment to get set up here. Okay, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So as a part of the Digital Financial Services section of the CTU Roadshow, we're here to demo today one of the apps we have built, which is our application for managing rates and taxes for NDCs across Guyana. So I'd like to start off just by explaining the background or the history of this application. So it was actually the result of a hackathon held by the Ministry of Public Telecoms last November. We were successful in building something that met the requirements, and we won the competition. So we're demoing this app to you today. So why is this needed? Well, across Guyana, there are about 63 NDCs, and these NDCs are responsible for managing communities, for performing maintenance works, and generally improving the lives of the people who live in these communities. But to currently achieve or execute these goals, there are a few shortcomings. One of them is accountability. It's generally believed by most citizens that once their money goes to an NDC, it goes into a black hole, because they don't see anything being done in the community. They don't have any idea of how the funds are actually being spent. They don't know how much funds have actually been collected. So that's problem one. Problem two is access to information. Again, you as a member of the public have no idea what your NDC is actually doing. You have no idea what projects they have planned, how close they are to achieving those projects, and what you could do to contribute to them reaching to their goals. Added to this point, when it comes to planning by a central government, it's difficult for them to understand how any NDC is actually performing. Because again, there is no centralized system for collecting data. So they have to really just go on the word of the heads of these agencies and whatever they provide to them. The fourth problem is when it comes to payments. most of the time, the person would have to go into the NDC office to make payments. So there's no provisions for electronic payments. If you live overseas, then you've got to trust that whoever you send your money to, that they actually take it to the NDC to make the payment. And in Guyana, there's something that we call prescriptive rights, which means that if you pay for a property over a period of time, you can actually claim ownership of it, which is another problem that exists because of a lack of a proper financial system for NDCs. Because there's no system as well, you also have a high rate of delinquency. Nobody pays. And the NDC, for them to check who was paid, they'll have to go and check through some old dusty ledger, which doesn't really make sense in this day and age. The next problem is communication with the community. Like if something is supposed to happen, some event, if there is an emergency, how do people in the community actually know about it? Well, unless you have neighbors who like to talk, you probably won't know anything. That's another problem. And generally, with new communities being built, people don't really have a sense of community. They don't really feel a part of it. They're just renting a house, and that's all they see. If they see the neighbors like 2 times a week, they see them a lot. So those are some of the issues that NDCs and the people who live in communities today have to deal with. So we really like that the MOPT thought that this would be a good app to have for the competition, because it's really something that could assist and aid in the development of communities across Guyana. It would really help them to grow, and in that way it would help the nation as a whole to make progress. So how do we address the aforementioned issues with an app? Well, by simply providing a platform which can help to resolve these issues. Number one, accountability. Well, because we've got a centralized system which would have in it records of every single property across Guyana, you now have the mechanism for getting access to data. You could see properties, you could see the rates that they're supposed to pay, the rates that are supposed to be collected, what has been paid already, and this would really assist with planning. Because planning is one of the things that could really improve the lives of citizens. So the government is now able to make plans. They could see what sources of funding are coming from the NDCs. They can monitor how the funds are being spent by the NDCs, and this helps them to plan for the future. When it comes to payments, now because the system that we have built is cloud-based, it means that you could be in any part of the world and make a payment using modern payment methods, credit card, and even locally, if you don't have a credit card, we are also able to do integrations with mobile money. So you could pay, not to just see how much your property owes, but you could make your payments from the comfort of your home or wherever it is that you might be, which should really improve the delinquency rate, because more people have the means to pay or access to a method to pay, then hopefully that makes them more willing to pay. And what would make them more willing to pay is a feature that we have thought about, not implemented as yet, is the idea of a community project. So what this is the NDC decides at the start of the year or whenever that these are the 5 projects that we have planned for 2018. The community has access to this. Now, they are able to see how much funding the NDC needs to get to achieve the goal and how they can contribute. Now, because they get to pick the goal that they would like to see done, it means that they would be now feeling, oh, I have a say in what my NDC does. But not only will they have a say, but they also see that they are required to pay their rates and taxes. So it encourages or motivates them to pay, and they can also see how the other entities are performing, which is another thing. So it's like sort of a competition to see which NDC could actually reach the goals it has set out, which again encourages the citizens of the community to actually make payments. When it comes to communication, one of the things that is a bit lacking right now is the ability to see, incidents or when something goes wrong. How do we know? Well, because again, it's a centralized system. Well, right now, most of us, well, me, I could speak of, I rely on people to post something on Facebook if something happens in my neighborhood. Not always reliable. Sometimes you might know until 3 or 4 hours after. But what if there was a way that if something critical happens in a community that you could know instantly? Well, we've built into the system a broadcast area which actually uses the lowest common form of communication, which is just a regular SMS, that sends a message to every single person who's registered with the app within the community. So if something goes wrong, then you could know almost instantly. Of course, this feature is only accessible to the head of the NDC or somebody who is trusted by them. So you wouldn't really get a false alarm per se. But for incidents that are not as critical, there is a section for incident management where if you've noticed a problem, let's say it's a dead animal on the road, the incident could be logged, photos could be uploaded, and we would like this to be forwarded to the relevant person so they could get the issue resolved. So in this way, people are able to, again, actually enjoy being a citizen of a community, because whatever issues they have that would cause them to have a negative experience, they'll be able to report it, and hopefully it gets resolved quickly. And if it doesn't get resolved quickly, then here's where accountability comes in, because the persons in authority would see, well, this issue was reported 5 days ago, and yet nothing's been done. If you just make a phone call, then whoever is asking the question could always be told, well, the person only called yesterday, but with a system, they can't do that. So this is just the kind of power and benefits having a centralized system actually brings to the table. So we are still working along with the Ministry of Public Telecommunications to get the system ironed out, to have it to the place where it'll actually be something useful that will, again, improve the lives of citizens of communities across Guyana. So that is our presentation.
Thank you very much, Julius. I think we're also going to hear a few words from the CEO of Innovative Systems Incorporated, Mr. Richard Langford. I'd invite Mr. Langford to come forward now.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure being here to demonstrate our application. This particular one that we're going to be showing is our human resource and the payroll application. This application is a cloud-based solution, and it has been developed by us. Fortunately, last year we were successful in winning the Most Innovative Company Award. The award was specific to this application that we had developed, and a number of large institutions in Guyana are actually using it. So one of the key things in Guyana right now and that we are trying to drive is the green economy. Is very often you hear the president and other governmental persons speaking about the green economy. So our green economy is specific to ensuring that you maximize your resources and not waste things generally. So this solution is developed along the paperless office concept. Starting out as a cloud-based solution, the application is designed for paperless office, right? So just a couple of things I'm going to demonstrate to you. I'm showing you the usefulness of the application and how we see this application being used by persons or companies within Guyana. Right? Any solution that wants to advance the paperless office concept must have workflow as its engine or its underlying engine. So workflow is a key and important process within the application. We have a series of mechanisms specific to approvals, and these approvals would move from one person to the next based on their roles and responsibilities. So let me give you a simple example. Let's say an employee is applying for leave. It's typical that the employee would apply to leave from his immediate supervisor. The supervisor approves the leave, and then it goes to probably somebody next in line. All of that is simulated within the software via workflow. So it greatly reduces the paper that you use. When you log in, you would see notifications, and then you react to the notifications. So the notifications are specific to your role. Let's say you're a supervisor. You would see that you need to approve the leave. The leave now moves to the next person in line and ends up at the HR department, who would either accept or reject it. All right? Any application that is cloud-based need to have user-friendliness as an important concept. All right? You want to reduce the learning curve, so user-friendliness aids a lot in that. So we have a wizard. A lot of the processes, wizards are used. So for instance, this would be the setup wizard in which you enter the details of the company, and this can change. If you decide to change the name of your company, you just change the reference information. All of your reports would come out reflecting that change, right? Because it's a human resource and payroll package, we know the rules governing taxes and national insurance remittances has to be entered. One of the benefits of this solution is that these rules are set up in such a way that they can easily be changed by the end user, as opposed to being hard-coded by some of my competitors. So typically, a customer or a client of Inosis don't need to reach out to Inosis to make changes specific to tax rates and NIS rates, right? You have an organization structure within it that displays the organization structure graphically, and from there you can see clearly how your organization is set up, right? One of the things that we've been doing in the software is to advent the use of dashboards. Most of the enterprise products that you see, whether it's QuickBooks Online, Zoho Books and so forth, you would see the current trend of a lot of dashboard and charts, right? So we've integrated a lot of charts in the system, and these charts would typically show graphically the various processes that is expected to show, results, etc. Right? One of the things that I'm especially proud of in the application, however, is the security within the application. The security that we have within the software, I would say, is structured in two ways. It's structured along data partition lines, and it's structured according to the roles that people do. So let's say you have different classes of employees within your system. Those persons are expected to be classified, and whoever is the users of the system, they would typically be granted access to specific classes, right? These classes now transcends into what you can see. So now you can partition the data and let's say only executive persons I can see in the software. Or you might be allowed to see junior staff or a combination of same, right? Apart from that, you have your standard roles. You have a human resources software. You have various people performing roles within the solution. So some people are going to be, let's say, the recruitment clerk. You're going to have other persons performing roles of processing leave and all the benefits that goes along with things that are given to employees, right? So all of those things are tracked. Because it's based on the paperless office concept again, one of the things that you would find within the solution is the ability to see employees that fall under your specific department. So if you really do some amount of analysis of how companies work, every single department to some extent perform basic human resources processes. So what we've done in this software is removed the burden of all of the processing happening in the HR department and give each one of the departments some amount of control, the same way it works in reality. So most times that would be the manager secretary or the supervisor secretary. They would be the person who would be processing leave, dealing with promotion, salary increases, and so forth. So how the software is arranged, each departmental manager has access that HR wants to assign to them. So for instance, the creating of budgets. You would have specific departmental managers who would normally have to do up the cost for their employees and then submit it. So it's a cascaded effect until it reaches the top. So they typically can do minimum amount of processing. Another example is appraisals. So appraisals are normally done within a department and then goes up to HR. So the appraisal typically would be done online. It moves workflow, would take it to the next person within the system. They would approve it and then it moves along the chain. So what's the net result? The net result is that there's minimum use of paper. Minimum use of paper. Another advantage is that a lot of the processes can happen faster. We know of a number of cases in which persons might be granted a salary increase, but the payroll department got the memo too late. So they probably got the increase 2 months or months down the line. It's impossible for that to happen now because it's instantaneous. So what this system does is removes the back and forth memos and papers and it replaces with notifications, right? So let me give you an example of some of the notifications that you would see. And this notifications lends itself also to the workflow, right? Workflow notifications go hand in hand. So it would normally remind you things like birthdays, for instance. It would remind you when persons' contracts are supposed to be, is due expiration. Work permits, you would also receive notifications on that. If somebody is due leave or what we call gratuity, all of those things are automatically notified to the users of the system. So there's no need for you to keep a schedule of those things, right? Good. And typically, with the use of self-serve, employees now have the power to view their own information. They can view a payslip, for instance. They can produce a job letter. So these and many more features are available by the application, and this is one of the applications that we're especially proud of. And as I mentioned before, we've actually won an award for this. So again, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Any questions for Did you say INOSIS? Yeah. All right, so that's the short term for it. Any questions for INOSIS for Mr. Langford or Julius? All right, thank you. I guess it was so clear. Thank you. All right, thank you, folks. I will bring to an end then this particular session on local innovation. And I think we've seen some very laudable initiatives at various scales in the business world in Guyana, from the small app to the medium app to the company offering multiple services. So thanks to all the presenters, please, and congratulations to all of you as well. All right, so that ends my session. I will now hand over to Mr. Lance Hines, who would take us through the roundtable on actionable ideas, and I'll ask our panelists to come forward. Mr. Oliver Gale, Mr. Is it Rowan who's going to do this? Yes, Mr. Rowan Willibus and Mr. Roland Singh. I think Mr. Farnham is not here, if Tony Farnham is here, but do come forward. But yes, we should move these. Yeah. Just let's leave it. I'll take it. Yeah, Roland. He has. He has. Yeah.
Thank you, and good afternoon again. I think many of us who have been ICT practitioners in some form or fashion in the Caribbean would agree that it has not been without challenge, depending on the area that you practice in. And that challenge varies in many parts of the Caribbean. Depending on where you are, it could be infrastructure, it could be lack of legislation, lack of policy, lack of awareness, you name it. There are a range of issues that, that come to mind when we think about these things. Our discussion this afternoon is a little more focused and talking specifically about removing obstacles to digital financial services adoption. I think we heard some of that this morning. There was a presentation in terms of what the Bank of Guyana is embarking on in terms of payments. There were some comments about that in terms of the, while that is a step in the direction that we'd like to see, certainly in view of the time frame under which that is being implemented, there were some suggestions in terms of either some different options or some additions to what it is that they're currently doing, whether it's legislation or whether it's actually putting in the solutions that we want to discuss. So that will be the gist of our discussion this afternoon. I think that the panel was already listed, but I'll do it again. Mr. Oliver Gale from BIT, who is here with us. Mr. Rowan Willibus from Intellect Storm. Mr. Roland Singh from the Bank of Guyana. I think Mr. Farnham, I hope, is on his way. He's from the ministry. Huh? I think so, but I think he understood the time to be a little later, and we're ahead of time. I sent him a note just to see whether he's coming. Yes. So I'll start with Rowan, and from the top of the table and work my way down. But Rowan, you have been developing applications locally certainly in support of financial services, financial transactions. And you've been working on products, at least I know for at least the past 2 or 3 years. Give us a sense of how that is going and what sorts of things that you've been running into as part of that experience to implement the kind of solution that you're looking for.
What we've been seeing, I would say over the last few years, I've seen much improvement as it comes from legislation from the Bank of Guyana side, and I really do applaud that. I wasn't here for the presentations earlier, but I was streaming it from the office. And while we are behind, we are making steps in the right direction. And my thing is, when delivering these solutions, you have to take into consideration the culture, the people, the time in which we are, the existing infrastructure as it is, and the legislation that exists as is, before you just bring something that is way ahead of the curve. But in terms of what we're doing with the payments application and our integration with mobile money, I remember Runson, he asked, when should we expect this? And I would say within the next 30 days.
Okay. All right, thanks. Oliver, I think I've heard you in the past in terms of what you've run into. You have been in the teeth of this. I could imagine, oh, sorry, I wasn't going in. Yeah, so you've been in the teeth of this, certainly in the financial sector. I would imagine the prospect of an alternative financial solution would, for a lot of reasons, cause the traditional sector some concern just because of the power structure, just because of what they're accustomed to. And this is a disruptive solution that you're proposing. So tell us the varying moods that you've run into as you try to implement the blockchain solutions.
I think they're really polarized. They run from very enthusiastic and seeing this as an inevitability. That would be best demonstrated by the CTU and Governor Antoine of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and the government of Montserrat, to extremely cautious on the other end of the spectrum, which makes up the vast majority. There's a lot of enthusiasm from private sector companies. Even in the intermission for lunch, I had an engaging discussion about applications of blockchain technology to agricultural integration regionally, and my answer was similar to the one that I give to most private sector companies, which is, we'd love to offer you the service. The technology is ready, but we can't do it without your regulator being on board. And so, in our time, in our 5-year history, we have really, without regulatory support, put Barbados and the Caribbean on the map. There are about a dozen 100 million plus market cap cryptocurrency businesses who have moved to Barbados, seeing the progress that we've made there. Recently, my co-founder at BIT became an advisor to Premier Burke in Bermuda, and a number of our colleagues were instrumental in having legislation passed in Bermuda to facilitate all types of blockchain-driven financial payments. Cayman Islands is home to a couple $2 billion worth of cryptocurrency asset value. And I mean, the journey through the Caribbean and the story of the Caribbean has been internationally recognized. And so whilst there's not the same level of participation as one would like to think over a 5-year period from the regulators, We've had investment from multi-billion-dollar capped publicly traded companies and large and growing startups relocate to these shores in an effort to be part of a revolution that really started from the ground up. So the frustrations that, one gentleman said, last time I saw you at the CTU, you look really frustrated and, cut a figure a little bit forlorn and angry. I still am frustrated, but not as frustrated because we do a lot of international business. And what we've learned is that if we can't innovate on one set of shores, we'll go and innovate on another. And so whilst the majority is still not embracing of the innovation, the minority more than makes up for it. So.
All right. Mr. Singh, I may gently put you on the spot for a bit, but I guess the question I would have is why would what it is that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and the Bank of Montserrat, I'm not going to get to Cayman and Bermuda and some of the other islands, but what is it that they would see that we can't, or what is it that they would see that we are a little more cautious about in terms of that? I mean, these are regulatory bodies like everywhere else, and is there anything special about us that we should pause in terms of going in this direction?
I think it has to do with culture. We have been all the time, 99.9% of our transactions are cash-based. And even the little efforts that the banks have made in terms of introducing point of sales, and so have not gained the traction. I think, if I could remember, we do collect figures for MMG. They're growing, but I don't think it is at the rate that one would expect. So I think that people are very, very sometimes skeptical, and maybe they're a bit more risk-taking than us. We prefer to be cautious.
Rowan, how could external, for example, the private sector, in particular the ICT private sector, even though it's in its growing and maturing stages, but what is it that we should do? What level of advocacy you think to move forward? Because this is a multi-stakeholder process. I think it's one thing to say that the banks and the central bank might not be moving at a pace that we would like, but certainly in some other parts of the society and as far as stakeholders, maybe some other work should be done.
I would believe that we should establish our baseline, understand exactly where we are. We should know where we want to go, and by that nature create that roadmap. But we have to take incremental steps. And like Mr. Singh mentioned, the culture, we prefer to have $2 million under our mattress. We are so bent on, if we don't see it, we don't really attach much of a value to it. And for all of this to work, it needs to have a cultural shift. And that does not happen overnight. I'm pragmatic, I understand that. So I think for the community, what we could do is we could work on the solutions that we have for our existing clients and see how best we could integrate different payment systems and such into it. So in Oliver's term, I would say do it bit by bit.
I think there's an Oliver, I think there is some merit to information sharing and also collaboration, because I think there are some here who look at this business and as young IT companies would look to see whether there are opportunities there as well. And so certainly with the work that you are doing, I don't know how much collaboration you've done in the region as a whole in terms of looking to encourage other ICT players to either partner with you or actually get into the business itself as part of their growth.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make. Blockchain technology by nature was born out of an open source, community-driven movement where the idea is that there should be nothing to hide and that trust should be based on the integrity of the mathematical systems, or rather the mathematical functions and IT systems which the technology are built upon. And if it's flawed, that should be addressed as a community or a group of communities. And so a lot of this technology that is available is not proprietary. The protocols are stronger for being open source and being publicly reviewed and audited and tested and evolved and forked. These are strengthening characteristics. They're not flaws of the system. And so we embrace that entirely. We have engaged institutions as stakeholders in Antigua, St. Lucia, Grenada, Trinidad, Jamaica. We have engaged players such as Digicel, Flow, National Insurance Scheme, and so forth. There are dozens and dozens of credit unions all around the region. So there are many organizations who we have entered into various stages of engagement as partners. And towards the grassroots initiatives, that is also very important. And it was only about a month ago we launched a program in Barbados called Project X, which seeks to allow entrepreneurs, young aspiring entrepreneurs, to come and work with us. We've been involved in educational programs and getting initiatives pushed into the University of the West Indies in Barbados so that programmers can further their education in more sophisticated languages and get familiar with blockchain technology. I mean, the work is 360 degrees, and we have a focus on the Caribbean, but are engaged in this sort of information sharing and collaboration framework as part of the cultural fabric and the technological fabric upon which we're built. So, you know, that's the name of the game. Collaboration and partnership is the way forward. No great thing was done by one man.
Mr. Singh, how could we help? I mean, I know that you're doing
payment system.
The payment system at the moment, and that is certainly a positive start. To move this process forward, to take it within the realm of the conversation that we've been having for the day in terms of cryptocurrencies, mobile money, blockchain technology. How could we assist, or how could we collaborate in terms of getting to that point? I think sometimes we unconsciously get into silos, and what happens is that you're going in one direction, you're going in somewhere else, and the next thing you know, 2 years later, I doing this, you doing this and stuff. How do you think we can sit down now and say, well, okay, in view of where you're going, how could we look at implementing the technologies that have been discussed here this afternoon?
Well, the project is driven specifically by the Bank of Guyana. It's also a collaborative one because we have the Ministry of Finance, the NIS, and the GRA on board, along with the 6 commercial banks. So we have all the major players involved in it. And the thing is, it's programs like these that educate the people. And I think that is one of the most important things we have to do, that we have to educate the population, tell them what the systems are about, and get the message out there how beneficial it would be for them. my presentation showed some very shocking statistics. And before the study was done, I don't think we realized how inefficient our payment systems were. And that we could have actually put a cost to what was happening and how that inefficiency. And I think it's sessions like these that are going to be beneficial. As I said, it's a cultural, I believe primarily it's a culture problem, and we need to start moving people away. I think it's going to be driven primarily by young people. It's technology, mobile technology. I've seen the presentations made for the apps, and it's particularly young people coming up with these ideas. So that's a good start, and I think if we look internationally, we find that it's the countries with young populations that are grasping and moving very quickly towards this. So education is very important, and we need to start developing people to be technologically wise. So we have to create hubs. We have to create IT centers in schools and wherever possible, so that using technology does not scare people anymore. It becomes a norm. So that's how I think that we can all help.
All right. Oliver, any things you think the local guys should do, just based on your experience as far as advocates or suggest?
I think clarification on the status that cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology take within the financial landscape of Guyana can be a non-controversial way to allow that innovation to happen. And what I mean specifically is that if a business entrepreneur, anyone engaging in this type of venture, has no idea of whether or not technology such as blockchain or distributed ledger tech falls under the existing legislation or whether it falls outside of that purview, is a major barrier, and it's a risk that comes with serious penalties if you're found to be on the wrong side of being an unlicensed financial institution. But what has been found to be the case in almost every jurisdiction is that if the laws do not accommodate this, you are not subjected to the existing legislation. Now, the response has been typically by regulators who are more progressive in, I just want to take a point to say the progressiveness of a regulator comes largely down to the resources available to them. So if you have the financial resources to have a large team of experts and analysts who can dedicate time and resources to understanding the technology, then so be it. But most of the regulators who find themselves bucketed as backwards or not progressive are resource constrained. So I acknowledge that point, and I think it's an important one because you don't want to, there's no malintent, it's lack of resources. But if your legislation does not cover something like a cryptocurrency or blockchain financial services, then issuing a guideline or a memo to warn investors of the risks of investing into cryptocurrencies or using this technology, and stating that whilst there is no legislation in place, there are AML and compliance guidelines which must be adhered to because this is an unregulated financial service. And what that does is it creates a zone for innovation as well as supervision to occur, because there's no way to reculture your population towards using payment systems. And to be clear, using a Bitcoin wallet and using a mobile money wallet, the user experience can be identical.
right? It's a database and tech that underpins it that brings certain properties to it, but the user experience can be identical. So you need to facilitate this innovation and allow it to happen to understand the culture of your people, how they will respond to an application, what products they will embrace. So it's just about creating space, I think, for the risk averse.
All right. Now we've talked a lot in front here. So I think we're going to move from the front and begin to move down to see if there are any questions and comments on the topic that we've discussed. Does anybody have a, Selby has a question? Right. Yes, sir.
From the, I guess this is for the panelists, as more comments. Being a user of one of the, I think, that are very important is confidence, and I heard the word trust being used. If you are a merchant or a customer, you turn up to a facility with your card loaded, but without cash, and then that facility, one, probably does not have the machine, or if they have the machine, connection is a problem. You cannot leave there with your goods. Once that happens once, twice, then what happens is that you, customer, lose confidence in the service or the product. So there are other aspects that also require some attention. Innovations mean, I think I heard earlier, coverage in terms of cellular phones. Many persons will have cell phones. In addition to that, if they're not able to garner that confidence that when I turn up to use get the service, I can get it here or there, then you can have a problem there. Another thing is simplicity. I mean, one of the things that we get, keep it very simple. So simple that, I mean, I think even caveman sometimes they have to do it or use it. So if it's too complex, I was looking at some of the presentations. If it's too complex, sometimes I can't use it. It's not for me. So those can be some barriers. So for the person being, I think it's time for us to move forward in terms of technology. And some of us would like to embrace it. Instead of walking around, as some I heard, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you prefer to walk with a car. And if it's useless and at the point to save it, you want something very convenient, or it's difficult for you to use it. Those are some challenges. Those are some points I need to consider.
Thank you. Thank you. Selby? Selby.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit concerned.
Tap the mic, isn't it? Right. And try to put it close to you.
I'm a bit concerned about the pace of taking up the challenge. And I'm concerned because we virtually live in a global village. And other countries are not waiting in the Caribbean and they're going ahead.
Right.
Yeah, we live in a global village. We live by some global rules over which we have no control, and in which the Caribbean does not participate in actively enough at all levels. Whether it's telecommunications, financial services, it's the same thing. And what I fear is that we might find ourselves being hustled into the adoption of new processes and new technologies because of the change in the international environment, in the global environment. And then it will be too late. We will then be forcing it on our people. rather than encouraging them to adopt it. I believe that where there is no regulation, there is space for action. Where there is no law, there is space for action. It means that the political directorate must recognize that there is a space for innovation and allow the innovation to happen, allow it to unfold, and look to see the impacts of it before introducing regulation. You cannot regulate what you don't know about. And certainly, in the technology space, regulation always lags. The technology develops at a much faster rate than regulations. So we must find a medium through which we can advance our case and take that bold step. And I think institutions such as the central bank, if they lead the way, the people will follow. If they lead the way and set the standards, the people will follow. It's part of the building of the confidence. If the highest institution responsible for financial transactions lead the way, the people will develop the confidence in the system. So my advice is, why do we struggle with some legacy systems when in fact we have the opportunity to adopt new technologies to improve the efficiency with which you do things? I'm not talking here about cryptocurrencies. I'm talking here about using technology to improve our efficiency. I don't think there's any regulator, any part of the world that will stop you from improving your efficiency and the delivery of services to your customers. So I would exhort Caribbean people to be a little more bold, a little more daring in the adoption of these technologies, and be less conservative. Be cautious, analyze, assess the risks, assess the opportunities, and there are opportunities. Already there are countries in the world that has taken the decision to go that route, and we would be left behind. If you look at the development index put out in the telecoms and ICT developments, nearly all the countries in the Caribbean are falling behind. Not because they're not investing, but others are investing more. Others are going ahead faster, and therefore we are lagging behind. We got to be more bold. We got to be prepared to take some risks and adopt these technologies if you're not to be left behind as a region, or find the worst case situation that we have to play catch up because the global community is saying, we're not doing business with you because you don't have the right technology.
Noted. Selvin, any comments from the front before I go back to the audience? You good? All right. Anything? You? Otherwise? All right. Back to the back.
Thank you very much. I think the fundamental issue is what has been mentioned by, I think, all three panelists, and that's the need for education. The other issue that has to do with the concerns of regulators, whereas I agree with Selvin on the issue of the need for us to be more aggressive and the need for unregulated space for innovation. The other side of the coin is that there are some negative use of the technology. And very often, the negative use tends to get more play, more awareness is built around that, and it clouds the positive side. So you'll find, for example, on the issue of cryptocurrency, the potential for it to be used for money laundering, for example. And there are many
either coins or tokens that are not backed by any real assets and are really almost Ponzi schemes. So there needs to be two tracks. One which highlights the positive and bring awareness to the potential negative use. So that, for example, what is being done by Oliver by working with the central banks needs to get more support. I'm not sure what is the role of CBU or ITC in aggressively supporting that kind of intervention at the policy level. Because you really need to have the central banks, even the commercial banks, become more aggressive in pointing out both sides of the coin. Because I know, for example, in the case of Trinidad, unlike, say, Jamaica or Barbados, where there have been perhaps greater political support, very recently the banks met in Trinidad, and what came out of that discussion was primarily the negative sides. You know, what could go wrong with the unregulated use of the cryptocurrency in particular. So I think we have to have a more organized approach. I don't know whether that is something that the CBU could play a greater role in, because what I'm hearing from Oliver is a private firm taking on the role of undertaking that is normally undertaken by the public sector. You're trying to create a level of awareness and policy changes as a private firm in an era where usually there are public organizations that take on that responsibility. So to me, it may be that the need for an organization like CBU that has, I suppose, political recognition to play a more aggressive role. People are actually using mobile money all the time. When you use your cell phone and transfer money to a friend, that's basically what you're doing. So unless people become familiar with the fact that this is almost an everyday phenomenon, and to point out how that is already part of your day-to-day existence, then you build up barriers on you know, the language you used this morning, for example, in explaining what blockchain is and cryptocurrency, perhaps needs to be broken down so that people understand much more easily what it is that we are talking about. So to me, the whole promotional and educational aspect has to be our major focus at this point, and more needs to be done by the public sector. It can't be left just to us in the private sector to seek to promote the absolute need for us to be on the cutting edge of this technology.
Thank you. I would posit that that same conversation can apply to quite a few other industries, but we're talking about this one this afternoon. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks. Right through the entire presentation yesterday and today, there seems to me, to my mind and to my ear, a common denominator, in the sense that regulator, the term regulator has been mentioned several times in the room. So I clearly see that there's an issue between the regulators of the industry and the actual developers. So my question to the developers and also to the regulator, is there some form of collaboration or alignment of policies and goals whilst or during the development process of these apps? Because at the end of the day, for example, in my field, I recently attended a seminar in Guyana where they was developing a GIS system, and for those who may not know the technical aspect, the geographical information system to be used in agriculture. Okay? So an individual might be scientifically inclined, but in the business field they may not be so au fait. So there needs to be a collaboration between the science and then the business of it. So what I'm saying is there collaboration or consultation being done with, for example, other professionals whilst these apps are being developed, basically? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, to both speakers' points, certainly there is a tremendous cost which BIT has borne over the years of its existence. And when I say a tremendous cost, I would say perhaps 50% of our budget has been spent on business development, regulatory, and educational efforts, whereas our counterparts in the rest of the world would be spending a fraction, if anything at all, on this type of groundbreaking initiative. And the irony is that these small territories are the perfect petri dish to demonstrate the applicability or the non-applicability of this type of technology. And so there are many around the world and a few within the region that look at these islands and say, and territories like Guyana and say, this is perfect. There's a huge problem here. The financial systems are undeveloped. If we can deploy a financial service here, we will be able to leapfrog previous technologies and prove very quickly the hypothesis that our business is founded on. And the ironic part is that doing that is nearly impossible. And we are living proof. It's taken 4 years to get a regulatory pilot, and we're still lacking a lot in that regard. We are still waiting on central bank clarification on basic things that can be done at really no cost to a regulator to clarify. On the note of our endeavors to bridge this gap between developers, technology, and regulators, last year we had our inaugural Central Bank Meets Blockchain conference in Barbados, and we had 8 central banks in attendance. And it was actually at that event that the ECCB, following the devastation of Dominica, announced that this type of retrograde economically combined with natural disasters has placed the Eastern Caribbean and the Caribbean at large in a situation which is dire and will only be escaped from with action. With that being said, our second Central Bank Meets Blockchain forum is happening September of this year. And as was done last year, the Bank of Guyana and every central bank in the Caribbean and many internationally will be invited once again. And the objective of that forum is to provide education and bring in, we bring in speakers from around the world who are experts on this subject at our own expense as a private company. And so it's a bittersweet message, because on the one hand, yes, I'm happy that we are providing the education and the platform. On the other hand, why is a private company whose survival depends upon generating revenue spend considerable portions of its time and effort working on an education piece, which is really not our mandate? And so, there's a lot of opportunity, but there is also a need for everyone to play their role. And we can only do so much in the private sector. And I think that the onus is on everyone who participates in policy, regulatory, financial services, ICT services, to take the onus of responsibility, because the blame will not lie on one's shoulders. The victory will not lie on one's shoulders. Everyone has an important role to play. And slow progress is almost no progress, because it's all relative to our peers globally. So, yeah.
To your question on the issue of collaboration, I think that is what is essential indeed. From our standpoint, we're looking to solve a local issue before we move regionally or internationally. And that's why, well, there's a Senegalese saying, the best way to cut a man's hair is with him in the room. So sometimes as technologists, we might feel that, we have the best solution, we know what the people want and such. But the right thing to do is to have those people at the table and understand specifically what is the challenges in our various territories so that we could see how we could tailor our approach to their specific needs and the situation at the time. I know I've been to a few of these conferences, and there is, the regulators get a lot of the heat, right? And I know this is something that they are working on, and some cautiously more than others. Like Mr. Singh said, depends on their appetite for risk. But in looking at the solutions, I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think you really have to look at the territory and look at the needs of those people and see how best you could engage them to provide a solution that is for them and not what you think is best.
Yeah, thank you, panel. We are in the closing stages. Any other comments from the floor? Going once? Going once and a half? Going twice? You have a, yes, sir.
Yeah, man, thanks a lot for your comment. I particularly agree, excellent what you just said, right? So, I don't know, I mean, I say locally, I've attended several consultations. For example, there was one with the forest laws, with the EU-funded program. And what they did, it's just an example, what they did, they designed what was called a National Technical Working Group, whereas they had people from like as you said, all the players basically sat down and devised a strategy, basically, how we can move forward. So I don't know if that's something would probably work good with in this situation when it comes to developing apps to fit in line with, for example, national development strategies or goals, or let's say the needs of the people at the time or the moment. Because remember, everything evolves and everything changes. Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you. And with that, I think we've come to the end of the session. A round of applause, please, for the panelists. Let's thank them for taking their time. And I think we are now at the wrap-up stage, and I think Selby has come to do housekeeping and related matters. Selby.
Thank you very much, Lance, for taking this spot for me. You did an admirable job. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've been excited by this workshop. There was a lot of good information shared. We've been able to identify some of the issues, some of the challenges, and we've heard from others how they are preparing the way to adopt some better systems and methods of paying. I would like to take this opportunity at this time to recognize all the participants for being here, staying with us for the day. I'd like to congratulate the presenters for participating. Some had more heat than others, but they withstood it well. And I must offer special thanks to BIT. And I say that because BIT really has been leading the process. You heard from Oliver that about 50% of the budget is spent on education and building awareness, which does not translate into profit. It's an expense. And I think we need to recognize his effort, and we would encourage the policymakers in the region and the central bankers in the region to take on board and recognize his efforts in trying to move us forward. And in a way, step up to the plate and take part of the risk that is involved in advancing our welfare in the Caribbean. I'd like at this juncture to thank our sponsors again, Digital, our premium sponsor, the other sponsors being Crimson Logic, Latnic, ARIN, ISOC, and RSC International. And of course, we'd like to thank the Guyanese team that has worked with the CTU to put this event together. I just want to draw to your attention that while we're in this room doing financial services, there are others in other rooms doing ICT for all, agriculture, and working with the people with disabilities. So it is a very complex, very engaging conference here in Guyana, and we would like to thank all of you who have made it possible by being present to participate in this event. Thank you very much. I would like to remind you to fill out the evaluation forms. It is a tool that is used by the CTU to improve its product over time and to assess where we are at any particular stage. So please remember to complete the evaluation forms. You may leave them at the desks outside the office, outside the conference room, and we would appreciate that very much. I wish you a very safe evening, and back to your homes and back to your hotels if you are not from Guyana. Thank you very much.